Hi, I'm Phil Palucha from Billionaires in Boxers, and you are about to engage with Up Level Your Communication, hosted by Maluna. Wow, this is going to be powerful. Communication is at the heart of everything that is good about business and about sharing with your fellow humans, and Maluna is phenomenal at helping you share that message and also interview some pretty special and amazing guests too. Check it out right now.
Welcome to Up Level Your Communication. I'm your host, Dr. Miluna Bausch. On this show, I will be interviewing some of the most interesting business people in the world. We'll focus on up-leveling your communication and leadership skills so that your voice can be heard and you can make an impact in the world. Welcome to Up Level Your Communication. My guest today went from 40 years in the San Francisco area in tech to leading the board of a small liberal arts college in West Virginia, where learning connects to success. His game is golf, and he's joining us today from McKinney, Texas. Ken, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Well, good afternoon or morning, whatever time of the day you're listening to this. I'm Ken Bado, and I'm a retired Silicon Valley survivor, retired CEO, and probably the last 10 years advising a lot of early stage companies in the tech area, primarily in the areas of helping them be more effective in bringing their products to market and scaling their sales and marketing. And then more recently, the last few years, has been chairman of the board of Bethany College, which small liberal arts, rural, and faith-based. And the category is probably the most challenged in higher education today. And so, that's what I'm doing. And other than that, you nailed it. I do play a lot of golf.
Now, your family has quite a legacy at Bethany College. And we're speaking of Bethany College in Bethany, West Virginia. It's about 30 miles from Wheeling and about an hour from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, when I used to travel cross country, I would stay at a hotel on the Ohio River in Wheeling. I can't remember the name. I looked it up. I'm not sure it's there. But the restaurant overlooked the river, and I just had such a ball there. But tell us about your family's history with Bethany College.
Well, it's, my family is diverse. My mom's side is primarily Western Pennsylvania, Scotch-Irish, and in fact, the fascinating part about her family is actually her mother, who I'm named after. Her maiden name was Mackenzie. From a small town, and went to Pittsburgh, went to Carnegie Tech, which is now Carnegie Mellon, got her degree, and became the manager of Kaufman's department store in Pittsburgh of their restaurant there. Now, the fascinating thing about that, the Kaufman family, you may not know, but you probably heard of Falling Water, and that was for the Kaufman family anyway. So, but anyway, my grandmother actually kept her maiden name in business and was the first woman president of the National Restaurant Association. So, I'm really proud of that part of the family and what they have done. And my name is not Kenneth; it's Mackenzie, named after her. Unfortunately, she passed away shortly before I was born at a relatively young age of cancer, so I never knew her, sadly. Her husband, Harry Shriver, I knew him very well. We lived in the same house and were very, very close. So that's that side of the family. And then my dad's side of the family, his parents were immigrants. Which was not uncommon around the turn of the 20th century. My grandmother came from Italy. My grandfather came from Romania. And they were married, sort of an arranged marriage. The fact that he worked at a steel mill made her father happy to put them together. And they lived in a little town called Beach Bottom, West Virginia, which was owned by Wheeling Steel, which, if you do your history, you understand this town. The housing was owned by the mill. The store was owned by the mill. And my father was a product of that environment growing up. Now, that's a little bit north of Wheeling, but fairly close to Bethany. Maybe as a crow flies, probably 4 or 5 miles, driving probably 10 miles. But So anyway, my father graduated from high school in 1939, works in the mill like everybody did in that town. World War II breaks out. He joins the Marine Corps, fights in the South Pacific, wins medals, including Purple Heart, things of that nature, and decides at that point he wants to go to college. He thinks it's the thing to do. And like a lot of first generation, he wanted to major in education, and Bethany was nearby. So he goes to Bethany College as a freshman in 1944. So he's probably 25 years old, like many of these GIs on the GI Bill. My mother goes there, and she graduated from high school, and at that time also, and so there's 7 years difference in their age. In fact, ironically, she wanted to go to Penn State, but my grandfather thought, oh, it's too big. Their next door neighbor was a Bethanian of all things, and said, have you heard of Bethany College? And they meet, and they go to Bethany. So they go to Bethany, get married, and the first child is me, and I go to Bethany. The next one comes a few years later. He's a musical prodigy. In fact, my brother Richard is the maestro for the Houston Grand Opera. He takes a different path, including Juilliard, and he's doing his thing. And then my youngest brother goes to Bethany also. Following that, I met my wife at Bethany College. We have 3 children. Our oldest son goes to Bethany. So we have two of my wife's siblings, myself, my brother, both parents. And I guess to honor that, there's a street, which nobody calls it this, but it's called Bado Way, or Bado Place rather, on the campus, but it's called Greek Hill. So, but anyway, that's the connection to Bethany. And people ask me, my history. I've been a Bethanian all my life. So,
a Bethanian, what a great story. Thank you. A beautiful immigration story, Falling Water. One of my favorite places.
It's beautiful there.
St. Lloyd Wright, one of my favorite architects. This is fabulous. Love how some strong people on both sides of your family. That's fabulous. As so many people came here, our ancestors came here for.
Yes, it's fascinating. And Falling Water, you mentioned that place. It's just, it's funny how my family connection. Each one of my siblings and my houses, there's some picture or a book or something to Falling Water somewhere. It's just a very, very special place.
Truly, truly it is. Now, it appears to me that the college is also very well integrated into the historical community of Bethany, which I think is so key for a college and a community and an experience. Is that true?
Well, it's fascinating to me. Fascinating to me. Your audience may not agree, but so Bethany was founded by the name of a gentleman named Alexander Campbell, again, Scotch-Irish, in 1840. So you think 1840, my goodness gracious, that's a long time ago. And it is. Our charter actually is with the Commonwealth of Virginia. It was pre-Civil War, and therefore the state of West Virginia didn't exist. And at that same location, he actually started a new Protestant religion, at that point new, called the Disciples of Christ, Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And so there is historic significance to that. The church has its archives there. His original mansion is still there. And really, we get a little bit of tourist attraction and appeal because of that history, because the archives are there in the mansion. And the cemetery, we call God's Acre. And many Bethanians and the historians of the church are buried there. And so it's a little, the town population is probably, I'm guessing maybe 400. The enrollment of the school is 1,000. So I jokingly say, no one ever passes through Bethany. It's if you're going there, you're going there. There's, it's when you're winding these hilly roads in West Virginia and you think you're really lost. Usually Bethany's right around the corner, and it's spectacular. But it's just, in fact, it reminds me actually of Pittsburgh. If you go to Pittsburgh from the airport and you drive in there, if anybody's listening has done that, you drive through this Parkway West, and you're taking this windy road, it's a expressway, and then you go under the Fort Pitt Tunnel, and then as soon as you cross the tunnel, boom, there's Pittsburgh right in front of you, and that's the way Bethany is. Boom is right there.
I love it. It looks like the ratio to professors to students, you're going to get some personal attention.
You cannot.
You cannot do it. cannot have it. So that's a wonderful thing, in my opinion, to get a quality education.
It's really, there's a couple of things that happen there. One, that relationship with the faculty is significant. You have that, because first of all, we have a number of first-generation students. So typically a first generation is not necessarily clear what they want to do, and many of us aren't. But so you have this opportunity to get to know professors, classes, and by the food of liberal arts, touch up various disciplines and understand what's there. And typically what we find is people usually make a connection with a faculty member or two, and they find that passion, and they will major in that. But the other thing that a small campus allows you to do is be involved in activities, and not only be involved, but actually lead. So the opportunities to learn leadership, I use examples. One of our newer trustees is a woman from fascinating. She grew up in the Bronx in New York, and wanted to be in journalism communications. And somehow along the way, she found Bethany College, and she was also an athlete, and she was going to go to Syracuse. And she goes, at Bethany, I guess I can play softball. At Syracuse, the chances of her playing softball were not high. So she comes to Bethany. I'm going to play softball at Bethany. Next thing you know, she's a freshman and she's on the radio within days of coming to the college. Make a long story short, she's an executive with ABC now. But, so Bethany allowed this. And by the way, imagine being in the Bronx and, New York City to a town of 400. And she's a very enthusiastic, one of her newer trustees, Evelyn DeSario, a fascinating woman.
What a great story of really making a difference and being involved in a smaller place where it may be easier to...
Well, you learn to grow. I'm saying, I think oftentimes we say, or what appears to be the ordinary, learn to be extraordinary at a place like Bethany College.
Love that. That's a beautiful way of illustrating it. Got more opportunities there probably to be seen and develop leadership.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about being in San Francisco. For me, it's changed so much. I know I moved away from there a few years ago. Now we're back on the East Coast. Tell us a little bit about the work and leadership.
Well, first of all, I love San Francisco. What a fabulous city. The location, being on the water, I think is so therapeutic for everybody. I sort of personally had this sort of mixed lifestyle between Marin County, which is just north of San Francisco, and I lived in the city in Russian Hill, and my office actually had two offices, one in the financial district and then the other up in Marin County. But it's sort of the end of the rainbow for a lot of people to go there. It's diverse, the financial industry, technology. The last few years has grown there too. Not to mention the food. Of course, food and wine is really spectacular. And but I found, though, our proximity to Silicon Valley, I was not in Silicon Valley, which is different. It's really, Silicon Valley is very, very tech-centric. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just, that's the game. It's sort of, it lacks diversity, where San Francisco, I think, offers a little bit more diversity there. But for me, after I retired, I found, that entrepreneurial spirit, a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly in the tech sector, that, had some great ideas, and they did. But what happens sometimes, this is not unusual, they get some early customers because these early customers understand what they're doing, and they're sort of an explosion of happiness, but they're not building scale. They get the so-called early adopters, and all of a sudden the business isn't growing, and they're going, gee, our first year or two was great. What's happened here? And so they end up firing their vice president of sales and or marketing about every year or 18 months because it's not working out. And finally, the board says, well, unless something changes here, you might be next in doing this. And for tech people, it's kind of a challenge, because understanding, what motivates people to buy, understanding two things, which is usually when we buy something, there's a compelling event. Something is, for example, our car's low on gas. That's a compelling event. We need to buy gas, or hot water heater's broken. Those are compelling events. So the next part then is, why do you buy product A versus product B? What is your unique value? And what we find is many of these companies in tech particularly are not really clear what business problem they're solving and how compelling is that. They say, this is cool technology. I hear that term a lot. It's cool, but is there a true compelling business problem they're solving? And then two, what makes them unique? Sometimes in venture capital, they call it so what and why you. And so what I found is in this consulting business, a little advisory business that I was involved with and doing, is, and I work closely with the CEOs to help provide clarity. What problem are you solving? So when you message this, 90% of the world doesn't understand how cool it is. They're saying that I've got a problem. How do I solve this? And more importantly, what do I buy you versus somebody else? And that to me is, what I really enjoy doing is really helping these folks do this. And then, and also, by the way, these companies typically are smaller, so their budgets are not huge. So every move they make needs to be, tightly managed because mistakes can be costly. And of course, the CEO is under pressure because they know that they're taking a long walk on a short period. At a certain point, they got to make sure it works because the board is talking to them and saying, we're going to make sure this works.
It's true. I love that you said that, because what you shared with me a few months ago is, what is the compelling problem you're solving? And don't just throw tech at it.
No, and it has to be compelling. It's like I said, and when I say compelling, I'll ask people, what happens if they don't solve this problem? What are the consequences? And I also believe that, anxiety equals value. The higher the anxiety, the more value is there. So this problem is compelling. Remember, we're a little bit older than some, but I would say that the most compelling issue in the tech industry in our lifetime was Y2K. Now, it turned out it really wasn't as much, but that up until that point, you remember, planes will fly out of the sky, elevators will stop, every computer in the world will stop. And that was, so everyone's going, I got to get a new computer, I got to make sure it's Y2K compliant. That was a compelling event. And you saw at that time the ERP companies like Siemens and Oracle, were replacing smaller systems in the marketplace, but that wasn't truly a compelling event that forced people to really look at what they were doing and then choosing product A over product B.
Great example. Absolutely. Talk about compelling. Yes. Now, you also shared with me, Ken, one of the keys to what you said, or maybe I said, or we said, outstanding leadership, is to deeply look at a person's gifts and passions, understand people, and then match them to their skills and loves. Share with us why this is so key.
Well, first of all, I one of my Ken Badoisms, it's always about the people. And I also say everybody's a 10 at something. And I truly believe that. Everybody's a 10 at something. But if you can match people's skill set and passion to the needs within the organization, and attitude, of course, get the heck out of the way, because there's going to be, tremendous things happening. And so it really speaks to the courage, to put the right people in the right jobs. And sometimes those jobs aren't even in your firm. I jokingly, so I mentioned opera with my brother. You could say, we have a great opera singer here at our company. Well, that's nice, but we don't need opera singers. And that person's probably not happy in doing what they're doing. So, how to relieve them of that burden with grace and find that. And I guess the other leg of that stool, I think, is really investment in organizational and individual development. And I think what I have found is when, people feel they're being invested in to help them be more effective, and they're learning from this process, and they're saying, how do I be more effective in this role? And just, again, getting the heck out of the way and letting them do that. So when I look at it, I look at skill sets, giftedness, and passion for a thing. Because, let's put it this way. You and I both know if you're passionate about something, motivation's not an issue. And how many times have you heard people say, well, I've done this for 30 years, I haven't worked a day in my life, because they truly are passionate about what they're doing. And then from a leadership perspective, I would share with you, for me, it's really important, that people are proud of what they do, and they do it. It's not about us as leaders per se. It's that they're saying, I love my job. I receive recognition. When I say recognition, not necessarily pay necessarily. It's a recognition that they feel is deserved. And it's legit. Now, I'm going to go on a brief tangent here. You can tell I have a bit of ADD. But oftentimes you have organizations that will give recognition or rewards, whether employee of the month or whatever, that kind of thing. And I would remind people when we do that, for every person that's recognized, the rest of the employees are not recognized. So what does that mean? It could mean two things. Oftentimes the bad news is these other employees are saying, I did just as much as that person. Why are they getting it? Not so they're demoted. So one person's feeling, hooray, I got this recognition. So it's really important that you be very clear when you're recognizing people why they got that recognition, but equally important, the ones that didn't understand why they didn't. And more importantly, what they need to do to get that recognition. Because I'd rather have them say, yes, Mary deserved that, and congratulations to her, but I know next time I want to do it because I know what I need to do to receive that recognition. And like I said, many managers kind of throw these things out willy-nilly, not recognizing that they're demotivating others at the same time they're motivating one person. So you need to be very clear what you recognize and who you recognize and why they won that, or earned that, I should say, and the other people did not. So that's sort of my little lesson today and recognizing what that means.
Love it. Intentionality, purpose, clarity, asking better questions. Thank you, Ken. Now, you also mentioned the quality of sensitivity. And something I feel is so missing from companies and leadership. For me, it is a lack of emotional intelligence. It's a lack of sensitivity to humanity. What do you mean by sensitivity, and how can we be better at it?
Well, it's as you're talking to a man, of course, with the on the Myers-Briggs is more thinker than feeler. I've learned, I'm learning, I should say too. It's a mission to learn, about that, and honoring people, I think, and being respectful. I always say if there's one finger pointing back, there's three more coming back at you, and honoring that. But listen, so oftentimes the term feeling is maybe looked down upon, but it's important. How do you feel about that? And then shut up. And it's not a check in the box. I'm asking you, how do you feel about that? This situation. And I actually have applied that more and more recently with our trustees at Bethany College, because we've had some tough decisions to make. And, it's a large group. Typically, when you have nonprofit boards, they're larger in number than a business board. So we have, over 20 people on the board. And so we're making tough decisions. And, and honoring people's, again, you have introverts, extroverts, and, people will speak every 15 seconds. But let everybody have a chance to talk and shut up. Yes. Even there's a moment of silence, that's okay. Let them finish their thought, because, not everybody's spewing stuff every, and I find that that environment, because you have a diversity of people, of gender, of age, of point of view, of history, and honor them as they're giving their perspective, and let them say the words. And when they're done, so anything else? And what I found is, because I've also been in cases where you have committees or whatever choosing things, and sometimes you wonder, these are very smart people, why are they making such bad decisions? And oftentimes it's because they want to hear themselves speak. It's the ego, it's the positioning. What I'm finding is that if you're honoring the people that are there, and literally from the top down, you're honoring people's perspective, truly honoring, they're glad to give it, and others will mirror you as the leader and say, yeah, I might not agree, but it's a perspective that it's worth considering and thinking about. And I think you come with better decisions that way. And again, it's trust, I guess, and that's the key word, I think, is trust. Because I think all of us have been in organizations where there's trust. And when there's trust, conversations are easy and things get done, right? And when there's not trust, conversations are difficult, I would add, if they happen at all. And there's a cost to the organization and things don't get done.
Beautifully said. Listen, gather the perspectives. That would be the whole point of having different intelligence and different perspectives on the board. Absolutely. And you said trust and communication also. Yeah.
Communication is the key, I think. And communication, it can't be oh, by the way, we need to communicate this. And I find that's one of the biggest challenges sometimes is, okay, we've done this decision. What's our communication plan? You need to be thinking about communications all the time. And I will share with you at Bethany, I think we can be much more effective there. It's because it's not part of the DNA. It needs to be part of it. In communications is everything. Management by walking around. It is the one-on-one meetings, the group meetings. It's the written communications. It's the these days social media. It's these messages because people are looking. First of all, not everybody hears a message. 2, they want to make sure it's a consistent message. So I heard it here, I heard it here, I heard it here, I heard it here, I heard it here. And the communication is it's not just a spin. Is acknowledging. There's a lot of pride in the world, but to acknowledge I messed up, or we could have done this better, we could have been more effective, and really mean that. It just, and that you're making tough decisions, but it's, have the courage and conviction, and even during the process, did you talk to people ahead of time about, and I'll ask people, an opinion. Do you think about that? We thought about that. And again, this group, effective group, comes up with better decisions to do that. And what I find is if you do these, and I encourage, by the way, organizations to do engagement surveys. It's, third parties do them. They're not employee satisfaction, they're engagement surveys, and it really speaks to the effectiveness, of the organization, and they're actionable. And we find that the groups that really, with the most effective communications, are typically the most engaged. They know what's expected. It gets back to the whole thing I mentioned a few minutes ago on recognition and reward. People understand who's being recognized, why they're being recognized, as opposed to, why they get recognized, I do just as much as they do, must be teacher's pet or...
Indeed. I love it. To me, the heart of everything is the communication, and the better. It is
the DNA of an organization, and it needs to be not, again, an afterthought, and because what happens, I think, sometimes is people say, we'll hire a communications manager, and God bless them, but it needs to be, the leadership cannot just throw it over the wall and say, okay, you're the communication manager. Communication manager can help you be more effective, and, as a counselor, trusted advisor to you, but just don't throw that task over the wall and say, okay, you take care of this. It needs to be a very thoughtful process in any effective organization.
Absolutely. Now, you've been described as a giver, not a taker. And I know you to be kind and generous and humble. That's my experience. And I'm fairly certain that being a giver has served you in all of your career. Yes? Would you tell us about that?
That now you're making me blush because givers don't like to do that. So come on, be nice. I don't know. Because I'm seriously, I am blushing a bit, but I think I've always felt, as I said, the first thing I said, it's all about the people. And I think if you, in fact, trust begets trust, you let them know that you want them to be successful. You want, whatever that means. And sometimes that success, again, is outside the organization, or, clarity of message. And, how do I say this humbly? Many people would say, I worked hard because I didn't want to let you down, Ken. And so I just, take that as, I'm putting in an effort to help them be successful. And they don't want to let me down because I've given them, I mentioned the training, I mentioned, responsibility, the trust. And I think people say, okay, I have it. Now I have to do something with this. I want to return the trust and favor that I've received, to do well. And that's, I think, what to me is, it's really about the other, if the other folks are feeling fulfilled. And I guess there's two parts, fruitful and fulfilled. They're delivered, they're fulfilled in what they're doing, but they're also being fruitful for the organization.
Well, you gave them the authority to do so. And doesn't it become a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're lifting people up versus oppression or a lot of the things that go on in companies?
I think so. One of the tools I think have used effectively is we use a methodology. It's not unique. We call it goalpost, but it's McKinsey uses it, Porter model for planning. Sort of, what is your sort of longer term objectives? What is the as is state? Which is really important. Not be truthful as what is the as is state. What is your goals, objectives, and strategies? I mean, it's very simple, but we've always asked people within that realm with constraints to build their plan. And what I found is when they build that plan, it's their plan. And we'll say, listen, have you thought about this? What about this? Maybe you have too many objectives, therefore nothing's going to get done. We think your profile information, your as a state, is kind of BS. You really have to be truthful about what's going on. You think it's this, but in your heart of hearts, it's not that way. So your plan's going to be flawed because your assumptions are flawed. So make sure you're there. But once people do that plan themselves and they own it, I find that the success rate is enormous because they built a plan. We all agreed to it. You break the huddle, and their job is to go execute that operating plan. I find success rate is very high because it's they own that plan.
It is the ownership, isn't it? That's our commitment. Yes. That's our dedication. That's our talent.
They put it up in front of God, nature, and everybody else, and that's it. We go, okay, fine, sign it. Here we go.
We signed off, so I better get this done.
And it gives you a tool also, and then through the period, typically a year, and to have benchmarks along the way. How are we doing? We said we're going to do this because you build tactics around doing this, that, and there. And how are we doing? And typically, I would say with the leaders, especially with that plan, they had to do an organizational plan, which is, okay, does your organization in effect match what you want to do? Do you have the right people and the right jobs, to be able to execute this plan?
Now, do you have a favorite form of communication? What is your number one?
I don't have a favorite. I would say I one-on-one is always good, but I think also, which is always good, but I think engaging in the group. So it's really that variable of there, and then and the written almost is almost a reinforcement of the one-on-one. And I do believe the one-on-ones. I'm surprised at all with my 300 pounds. There's a number of dinners I've had over the years with people. It's just, I think that's a European part of me. I think is spending so much time. I lived in France for a while. It's just, the importance of a meal and sharing a meal. But then with the group, and then letting the group, be part of the process and really being part of the process. And then you do your written communications. I was writing newsletters 30 years ago, and it was just, and again, the newsletters, I think people say, okay, what are you saying here? What are you saying here? Is the same as it's in the newsletter. I mean, you'll chuckle when I say this, and I live in a little neighborhood here of about 120 homes, and why in God's name am I doing this? But I'm the chairman of the HOA. It's God bless, but it's actually fairly easy. I write a quarterly newsletter for the group, and I would say if I get a call every 6 months, it's fairly, because I think people want, and the reason we have an HOA, frankly, is because in my neighborhood, we have a third party that does front yard landscaping. They do all the mowing and edging and that kind of thing. And so I in the newsletter, in this quarter, this is what the landscape company is going to do. They're going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to have the holiday party on this. And it's just, it's a matter of rogue, and people go, okay, I know what's going on, and no complaints, and I know who to contact when something comes up, and I think it's just really, really important.
I love it. Simple, clear. Here's what you do. Here's what to expect. And then you don't have phone calls and complaints and drama. I know we've had several HOAs over the years. Some great, some problematic.
And got to the point too. Why did I take this? Because it's not about me. It's about I want the neighbors to be happy and what they're doing. And that we had our annual meeting, and someone said they started complaining to the management company. We raised the rates. What it's very reasonable. And I said, it's not the management company that did that. It was us, the board, that did it. She goes, oh, okay. Because she wanted to pick up I said, no, it's just take responsibility too.
Absolutely. And then you have happy people, and then we don't feel like we have to fight for things. And that's a very different energy, isn't it?
No, it's a conversation. It's a conversation, and I encourage that. The term I use, that's having an adult conversation.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about this and kind of to keep the drama in the back pocket? And
That's a good one. Keep the drama in the back pocket. Unless, of course, you're acting. When I'm acting, now that's something else. We love the conflict. Not so much in leadership.
No. And the other group I want to share this briefly is I was a founder of a group called Voices of Hope for Aphasia, and it's in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is the Tampa, St. Pete, the Bay Area down there. And aphasia is a term that most people don't know, but I'm going to tell you what it is. Typically, if you have brain trauma, oftentimes from a stroke, you're challenged with language skills. You think of people you might know. Gabby Giffords was the congressperson from Arizona. She was shot in the head, had brain trauma, and she had challenges with speaking and listening. And that's but the sad thing is when you have aphasia, the intellect is there, but the communication skills, language skills are not. So sadly, many of these folks with aphasia feel shame because the outsiders think, oh, they're different. There's something wrong here. And I just kind of push them away. And we started this sort of and speech pathologists can help people improve that. And many people do. Some don't, but many people do. But Voices of Hope is about bringing folks together that have this as a community and building their self-esteem and confidence so they don't feel shame. So we started this group about 12 years ago. And again, a very small board, though, and we bootstrap. We would meet in churches and that kind of thing. Since that time, we've become probably the largest community-based aphasia organization, probably the most well-respected in America, from nothing. And the reason I thought of it is our executive director is an actress, and she was involved in community theater in that Tampa St. Pete area, and just a fabulous person. But she's a speech pathologist, and she went to Wellesley. I mean, just a very diverse and amazing woman, in history, and really helped this organization truly be an effective group. And again, we've gone through challenges there. And when I was board chair, I stepped down as board chair a couple of years ago. The board, we had tough decisions to make, and the board really stepped up and made them.
I love it. I think the humanities, I'm biased, but I think the humanities is a fabulous background for success in any business. It's just a different way. We think differently.
Well, it is. And, and I think it's appreciated that. So at Bethany, my background, I don't know what I was going to be, business, whatever, but I fell in love with the math department there because, as I found out later, I'm dyslexic and I'm not a really good reader, but I was a math major. We started a computer science department, but you had these other courses, and I find that there's many ways as a means to an end, and the humanities are a big part of that.
Definitely. How can folks find out about Bethany College? What's the website?
Well, the website's pretty easy. It's Bethany WV, which is West Virginia, because there's several Bethany colleges. BethanyWV.edu. Simple as that. Bethany WV, West Virginia. BethanyWV.edu, and they can go to that site, learn about that. I'd suggest a lot of children, going to college aren't sure what they want to do, and just you'll come out of there. And we have a significant number of our graduates go on to graduate school, medical school, veterinary school, lawyers. It's not in a big city. You're focused. It's a learning institution, teaching institution. It's not a research institution. Your professors are not going to be spending a lot of time writing papers and research with teachers' assistants. You're going to need the top professors immediately as a freshman. So, and then after that, if you want to go to graduate school, go to a prestigious school in the city somewhere, have at it. You'll do great. So that's Bethany.
Fantastic. As you said, learning connects to success, and that is the new.
It surely does, and success whatever that means. But it's accountability. It's we believe in the undergraduate experience. Now, I would add, we are now offering actually online graduate programs. So that's relatively new for us. So MBAs and that kind of thing. So and certificate programs and et cetera. But the core of the place is the undergraduate 4-year residential experience.
Fantastic. A great place to start. Find out what you're about and define success for ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for enlightening us about all of your experience, what leadership really means, the questions we could be asking, communication at the heart of everything we do, and being effective and intentional with it.
Intentional communications, yes. This has been a pleasure, and based on reading what you've been doing, seeing you're doing, God bless you. I think you're a leader on what you're doing, and people need to hear about this more and more. So thank you for inviting me to participate today. I appreciate it.
Ken, thank you so very much. For our audience, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to stay tuned for the next Up-Level Your Communication show. Bye for now. Thanks for watching. Be sure to share our show with the key leadership at your company and with your friends. If you know in your heart that you're ready to up-level your speaking, stage presence, and impact, visit milunafausch.com to schedule a complimentary call. You can also purchase my book and our podcast music, Strong Body.
Thank you for enjoying this content by Billionaires in Boxes. If you would like to be a guest or a host, be sure to get in contact with us at billionairesinboxes.com.